The glittering facade of modern celebrity culture has long been fueled by an obsession with youth, perfection, and the relentless pursuit of the next breakthrough in wellness and physical transformation. In the heart of this high-stakes world, public figures constantly navigate the intense pressure to maintain a certain image, often turning to the latest scientific advancements and medical innovations to achieve their goals. For years, the public has watched from afar, fascinated by the seemingly effortless transformations of their favorite personalities. But behind the closed doors of luxury estates and private clinics, a different reality sometimes unfolds. This is a landscape where the boundaries of cutting-edge medicine are frequently pushed to their absolute limits, and where the line between a revolutionary health routine and an unpredictable medical crisis can become terrifyingly thin. It is within this demanding environment that well-known individuals frequently experiment with complex combinations of therapies, driven by the desire to optimize their bodies, regulate their health, and keep up with the unforgiving demands of the spotlight. The allure of these sophisticated treatments is undeniably powerful, promising rapid results and a level of control over one's biology that was previously unimaginable. Yet the human body remains an incredibly intricate system that does not always respond according to plan. As we delve deeper into this compelling narrative, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the most captivating stories emerging from the world of entertainment and contemporary lifestyle trends. The story we are exploring today centers around a highly public couple whose lives have been a subject of fascination for decades, known for their sharp wit, creative endeavors, and an openness that has endeared them to millions of fans globally. They have spent years sharing the highs and lows of their journey, building a reputation for unfiltered honesty in an industry that often prizes curation over authenticity. However, even their most dedicated followers could not have anticipated the sheer intensity of the domestic emergency that would suddenly disrupt their lives during a quiet summer evening. It was a moment where the glamorous world of public appearances and creative projects completely dissolved, replaced by a sudden and overwhelming sense of vulnerability that pushed both partners to their absolute emotional limits. The incident serves as a striking reminder that no amount of success or recognition can shield someone from the unpredictable forces of a sudden health crisis, especially when experimenting with advanced wellness regimens that are still being fully understood by the public. To truly understand how this terrifying scenario unfolded, one must look at the broader context of the modern wellness movement, which has increasingly embraced a variety of specialized compounds, advanced treatments, and biohacking techniques designed to alter the body's natural processes. In recent times, the conversation around physical maintenance and health management has been completely revolutionized by the emergence of powerful new substances, which have quickly shifted from specialized clinical tools to highly sought-after lifestyle enhancements. While these advancements offer incredible potential benefits for a wide range of conditions, their rapid integration into daily routines has sometimes outpaced the general public's understanding of how they interact with individual biochemistry, particularly when combined with other supplements or during natural biological transitions. For the individual at the center of this story, a mother of two and an accomplished creative force in her own right, the decision to incorporate these elements into her personal health routine was rooted in a desire to manage ongoing physiological challenges. Like so many others navigating the complex demands of career, family, and personal well-being in their late 40s, she was seeking a balance. Entirely unaware that the path she was choosing would soon lead her into a state of sheer panic and physical distress. The atmosphere leading up to that fateful night in the early summer of 2025 was seemingly ordinary, filled with the usual rhythms of a busy family preparing for upcoming seasonal changes and milestones for their children. Yet, beneath the surface of this normal routine, a subtle chemical shifts were occurring within her system, triggered by a highly specific and potent combination of substances that she had been carefully administering. The decision to microdose these powerful compounds, alongside an intricate selection of other specialized elements, was intended to be a controlled and measured approach to wellness, a way to gently nudge the body toward optimal performance without causing major disruptions. Instead, this calculated regimen was quietly setting the stage for an unprecedented biological reaction, a sudden and dramatic event that would shatter the peaceful silence of their home and leave both her and her husband completely paralyzed by fear. The transition from a state of controlled health management to an absolute medical emergency happened with a speed that left no time for rational reflection, transforming a routine trip to the bathroom into a scene of chaotic distress that would test the couple's resilience like never before, as the first signs of the crisis began to manifest. The familiar safety of their domestic space was instantly compromised, replaced by an escalating sense of dread as the physical symptoms rapidly worsened beyond anything she had ever experienced. The suddenness of the situation created an immediate atmospheric shift in the house, turning a quiet evening into a frantic struggle to understand what was happening to her body as it seemingly spiraled out of control. It was an experience that she would later describe as deeply harrowing, a term that only hints at the profound fear of watching one's own physical integrity falter without warning or obvious explanation. In those initial chaotic moments, the boundaries of medical knowledge and personal certainty were completely erased, leaving her alone in the dark with a terrifying bodily response that seemed to mimic the most dramatic sequences of a cinematic thriller. The sheer volume of the physical distress was enough to shock anyone, but for a family accustomed to dealing with life's challenges through humor and lightheartedness, the sudden confrontation with a genuine, life-threatening emergency was an absolute shock to the system, setting off a chain of events that would ultimately require the intervention of emergency medical professionals and change their perspective on personal health forever. The quiet of the household was shattered in an instant when Jenny Mollen rushed to the bathroom, driven by a sudden and overwhelming sense that something was catastrophically wrong inside her body. For weeks, she had been microdosing tirzepatide, a potent GLP-1 receptor agonist primarily known for regulating blood sugar, appetite, and digestion, which has surged in popularity across global wellness circles. Seeking to manage her health issues related to a hyperthyroid condition and an ongoing autoimmune disorder, Mollen had combined this modern medication with an intricate cocktail of other specialized peptides, believing the controlled, low-dose regimen would provide a safe therapeutic balance. Instead, as she sat on the toilet in the middle of that June night, her biology revolted with a sudden and violent force that completely defied expectation. She was hit by a sudden, massive hemorrhage, a terrifying downpour of blood characterized by massive clots that she would later graphically describe as being the size of dinosaur eggs. The physical sensation was so alien and extreme that she felt as though she were literally laying an egg. A bizarre and deeply alarming experience that immediately triggered an overwhelming wave of primal panic as blood covered the bathroom surfaces, terrified by the rapidly unfolding medical crisis. Mollen began screaming at the top of her lungs for her husband, Jason Biggs, who was resting nearby, completely unaware of the disaster transpiring just feet away. The acclaimed American Pie actor rushed into the bathroom, expecting perhaps a minor household accident or a momentary illness. But he was completely unprepared for the gruesome scene that met his eyes. The sight of the sheer volume of blood and the massive clots instantly stripped away any sense of Hollywood composure, plunging the couple into a shared state of absolute terror. Rather than stepping into the role of the calm, stabilizing presence, Biggs was so thoroughly rattled by the sheer visual horror of the situation that he joined his wife in panic. Screaming loudly in a scene that Mollen later remarked felt exactly like an intense sequence from a cinematic horror movie. For several long, frantic minutes, the bathroom became an echo chamber of mutual terror as the two public figures, usually celebrated for their comedic timing and quick wit, found themselves completely paralyzed by the raw, visceral reality of a sudden and unexplained physiological emergency. Despite the absolute shock and the unmistakable severity of the ongoing hemorrhage, an immediate departure for the local emergency room did not happen, as a strange mix of denial and hesitation took hold of the couple. Mollen, though deeply shaken and continuing to pass substantial blood clots at an alarming rate, made the fateful decision to remain at home, hoping against logic that the terrifying episode would eventually subside on its own. As the initial wave of adrenaline began to recede, Biggs, exhausted by the emotional toll of the screaming match and perhaps eager to believe that the worst had passed, eventually went back to bed, leaving his wife to monitor her own deteriorating state. By the time the deep stillness of the night had fully set in, Mollen found herself lying in bed next to her sleeping husband, her body growing weaker by the minute as the continuous loss of blood began to drain her vital energy. Looking down at her husband, she whispered a grim realization, telling him that she sincerely believed she was losing far too much blood to survive without intervention. A desperate plea for help that was met with a dismissive response from an exhausted Biggs, the actor, deeply asleep and unable to grasp the gravity of the situation through his slumber. simply murmured that she was fine before closing his eyes once again and drifting back into unconsciousness. Left entirely to her own devices and feeling an ominous shift in her internal state, Mollen forced herself to get out of bed and slowly walk back toward the bathroom in a desperate attempt to use the toilet. It was during this short, agonizing walk that her cardiovascular system finally buckled under the immense strain of the blood loss, triggering a severe vasovagal reaction as her blood pressure plummeted and her heart rate slowed dramatically. In an instant, the world went black, and Mollen collapsed heavily onto the hard bathroom floor, completely losing consciousness as her body succumbed to the profound physical trauma of the evening. When she briefly regained a fragile awareness, trapped on the cold floor and unable to move her limbs, she began frantically calling out to her husband in a weak, desperate voice, crying out that she was completely unconscious and desperately needed him to wake up. The urgency in her voice finally broke through Biggs's deep sleep, shocking him into immediate action as he realized that his previous dismissive attitude had left his wife stranded in a life-threatening state on the floor. Rushing to her side, the actor found Mollen completely immobilized, her physical strength entirely spent, yet his immediate instinct was to avoid the public spectacle and disruption of calling an emergency vehicle to their residence. Standing over her on the bathroom floor, Biggs urgently pleaded with her to stand up, explaining that she absolutely had to let him carry or assist her to their private car so he could personally drive her to the nearest emergency room. His insistence on avoiding an ambulance was driven by a deeply protective parental instinct, as he was terrified that the flashing lights and blaring sirens would abruptly wake up their two young sons, 12-year-old Sid and 8-year-old Laszlo, who were sleeping soundly in their bedrooms. Biggs was desperate to shield his children from the sheer horror of seeing their mother carried away in the dead of night, hoping against hope that they could manage this terrifying ordeal privately. However, the luxury of choice was stripped away from the frantic father just moments later when Mollen, completely incapable of supporting her own weight or remaining conscious, fainted for a second time right before his eyes. The sight of his wife sliding back into absolute unconsciousness shattered any remaining hesitation regarding public exposure or waking the children, forcing Biggs to immediately dial 911 for emergency medical assistance. Within minutes, the quiet neighborhood was pierced by the arrival of first responders, who rushed into the home with medical equipment and quickly assessed Mollen's critical condition before placing her onto a gurney. The chaotic scene of paramedics working in the cramped bathroom stood in stark contrast to the peaceful, wealthy environment that surrounded them, highlighting the terrifying randomness of medical emergencies. As Mollen was wheeled out of the house and loaded into the back of the waiting ambulance, the family was plunged into a grueling, high-stakes journey through the night, leaving Biggs to navigate the twin terrors of a medical crisis and the sudden, heartbreaking disruption of his family's domestic sanctuary. The roaring engines of the emergency vehicle sliced through the dark pre-dawn hours as paramedics worked tirelessly to stabilize Jenny Mollen, monitoring her vital signs closely after the repeated syncopal episodes that had left her entirely incapacitated. Beside her, Jason Biggs watched in a state of quiet, exhausted shock, his mind racing through the terrifying events of the night while the ambulance sped toward the hospital emergency department. Upon arrival, the medical team immediately went to work, initiating intravenous fluids and performing comprehensive diagnostic evaluations to understand the precise cause of the catastrophic hemorrhage that had nearly cost Mollen her life. The clinical environment, characterized by bright fluorescent lights and the rhythmic, reassuring beeping of cardiac monitors, provided a stark contrast to the chaotic, blood-slicked bathroom they had left behind just an hour prior. For hours, the couple endured the grueling waiting periods typical of emergency medical care, balanced on the razor's edge of exhaustion and anxiety as doctors sought to restore order to Mollen's severely compromised system. Fortunately, the swift intervention of the emergency physicians successfully halted the bleeding, slowly allowing her blood pressure to stabilize and giving her frail body a crucial chance to recover from the massive loss of fluid by the time the medical staff cleared Mollen for discharge. The first light of dawn was beginning to break over the city, casting a pale glow across the hospital corridors as the couple prepared to return to their normal lives. Racing against the clock, they managed to pull into their driveway at exactly 6 o'clock in the morning, their physical and emotional reserves entirely drained after an experience that Mollen would later summarize succinctly as nothing short of absolute horror. With no time to sleep or process the traumatic events of the past several hours, they immediately shifted back into their parental roles, putting on brave faces just in time to see their eldest son off to summer camp. The surreal transition from a life-threatening medical emergency on a bathroom floor to sending their child off with smiles and well wishes encapsulated the bizarre, demanding nature of their lives. Where public expectations and private crises frequently collide, the profound relief of returning to their family unit was palpable, yet the psychological scars of that night remained deeply etched in both of their minds, prompting a deep period of reflection regarding the hidden dangers of modern lifestyle interventions. Reflecting on the deeper context of her ordeal during her subsequent appearance on the podcast with Kelly Ripa, Mollen open-heartedly broken down the intricate details of what she was putting into her body prior to the crisis, shedding light on a growing societal phenomenon. She revealed that she had been utilizing tirzepatide, a highly potent GLP-1 receptor agonist designed to mimic natural metabolic hormones, alongside an extensive and highly customized cocktail of other experimental peptides. While these medications are predominantly prescribed to manage type 2 diabetes and assist with clinical obesity by regulating blood sugar and appetite, Mollen explained that her motivations were entirely separate from traditional weight loss desires. For years, she had been quietly battling an aggressive hyperthyroid condition coupled with an intricate autoimmune disorder, chronic health challenges that left her feeling perpetually out of balance and desperate for a therapeutic breakthrough. This underlying vulnerability had driven her to explore the cutting edge of alternative wellness, leading her to believe that microdosing these advanced chemical compounds could help regulate her volatile endocrine system and restore her physical vitality. Instead, the complex interaction between the synthetic peptides, the GLP-1 medication, and her own delicate hormonal balance created a perfect storm within her reproductive system, highlighting a medical blind spot that many women face as they approach midlife. Mollen openly pondered whether her perimenopausal status played a significant underlying role in the catastrophe, acknowledging that the natural, erratic shifts in hormones during this stage of life may have left her uniquely susceptible to an adverse reaction. While she stopped short of placing the blame entirely on the tirzepatide itself, she concluded that the profound disruption to her natural cycles was directly tied to her erratic usage of the modern weight loss drug. She noted with absolute certainty that her decision to stop taking the medication, only to abruptly reintroduce it into her daily routine a short time later, was the precise catalyst that completely threw her body out of alignment. This dangerous pattern of inconsistent dosing, common among individuals experimenting with these substances without strict, continuous clinical oversight, proved to be an incredibly volatile trigger for her vascular and reproductive systems. The harrowing experience of Jenny Mollen and Jason Biggs serves as a powerful, cautionary tale that extends far beyond the borders of Hollywood, echoing throughout a modern culture increasingly obsessed with rapid chemical solutions to health and aging. It underscores the profound risks inherent in treating highly complex multi-system prescription medications as casual lifestyle enhancements, particularly when individuals attempt to customize their own regimens outside of rigorous medical boundaries. The human body, as Mollen discovered in the most terrifying way imaginable, is an incredibly delicate web of interconnected systems where altering a single metabolic pathway can trigger an unpredictable, catastrophic chain reaction elsewhere in the organism. Their journey through that dark June night stands as a vivid reminder of the vital importance of clinical caution, open communication with qualified healthcare professionals, and the profound respect we must maintain for the natural boundaries of our own biology. Ultimately, while modern science continues to offer revolutionary tools for health management, the line between optimization and medical disaster remains incredibly thin, demanding a level of respect and humility that no one should have to learn on a bathroom floor.